Hi, my name is Morten Jensen and welcome to the NBA show where today we'll be discussing the 2020 NBA draft. Let's get something out of the way immediately. The 2020 NBA draft class is not projected to produce a significant number of superstars, if any. But that might actually be okay, because sometimes you just need a bunch of role players to get into the NBA and filter out across the entire league. This is one of those drafts. You will find players who come in and are part-time starters, maybe full-time starters, or permanent bench players for a 10 to 12 year career. There are a lot of guys in that category that you can even say, well, they're going to be a defensive specialist like as Isaac Okoro from Auburn University. There are these players that you kind of need to have in terms of playoff success, because you can't just always rely on top-tier talent. When the benches are emptied, you need to have the best caliber of bench guys out there, and maybe this draft provides that opportunity for every single team out there. But before we start looking at all the role players, let's look at the top of the draft board, because for me personally, I think there's a clear-cut number one guy now, and I think that's actually a little bit of change in mindset, because ultimately this was a wide open draft, and it might still be, but for my money, I'm going with LaMelo Ball. And there's only one reason why. His court vision is outstanding. He played just 12 games in the Australian NBL, but that didn't really matter, because if there's one thing you could see on the tape, is that he found players everywhere. He could pass on the move, standing still, when being in the post, when being outside the three-point line. There wasn't really any passing weakness in his game. Having that one bankable talent that you can bring to the NBA and be a disruptor offensively is a huge asset for any NBA team that wants their passing game to flourish. Now, offensively, he's a bit of a question mark. He might not be as good a shooter or slasher because his percentages are really not all that great. But given his size at 6'7" and his fluidity and loose hips, which allows him to twist and turn and contort his body, there's a lot of potential there. So if he goes to a team that takes his development very seriously, and really, who shouldn't be doing that? It's the NBA draft, for crying out loud. There's a reasonable chance that he becomes maybe a 1 or 2 time All-Star, maybe even more. But let's try to cool expectations. At the very least, he should be a full-time starter for a significant period of time. And if that's on the Minnesota Timberwolves, good for them. They could use that and then slide D'Angelo Russell to the 2, meaning they would have plenty of passing in the backcourt. Karl-Anthony Towns would only be happy to receive passes from 2 players. That's fine. Now, going down the draft board a bit, we'll find a guy like Anthony Edwards from Georgia. Edwards is interesting, if not only for his physical presence. This guy is 6'5", 225 pounds, and he is built like an NFL linebacker. He can jump, he can run, he can do a ton of things when it comes to his raw physicality. The question there is, does he have the basketball acumen and the basketball IQ to become a legitimate role player or starter or even star in the NBA? And that's the frustrating part about Anthony Edwards. He has all the skills in the world, but you need to know before you select him whether or not he has the drive and the determination to become great. This is a guy who could become the carbon copy of Dwayne Wade if he wanted to. He just needs to have the right mindset. He needs to be professional starting from day one. If he is, and if he does take his NBA progression seriously, you could easily make the argument that he should go number 1. I'm a little bit iffy on that still. I don't know where his head is at. If you have number 1, you do have a certain expectation of getting something fruitful, which is why I might prefer to see him slip down to number 2. But hell, I could be wrong. If we move down a little bit further, we'll find Israeli forward Deni Abgha, who is a very interesting combination of size and skills and experience. He played in a professional league in Israel against grown-ass men, which does matter in NBA context because that should allow him to be more NBA ready when he hits the court. At 19, he won the league MVP, which was here last season, and he's actually already a pretty outstanding post defender. He can handle the basketball, he can pass it, and he's probably more inclined to be an NBA 4 but not in a traditional 4, as we've said before. Look here below, the power forward position is dead, remember. But he's one of those guys who can swing positions. He'll handle the basketball, he'll initiate the offense, he can hit threes at a reasonable rate, even though there is some concern about his shooting ability. But there's a lot to like in Abgha. He could become one of those internationals who we remember 20 years from now. He could also flame out miserably, and that is really what the 2020 NBA draft is all about, because the skills and the perception of players vary greatly. In my private network of NBA scouts and NBA draft experts, I have people talking to me about players who they have ranked all the way from number 3, where some differ and say, well, I have them ranked 27th. That means that this draft could get crazy. The Boston Celtics, for example, have 3 first-round draft picks. They could trade all of those, they could keep them, they could do a bunch of things. So we're probably going to see trades, we're going to see guys slip, we're going to see guys rise. And honestly, I love it. I absolutely love it, because for once we're going to get a draft that is entirely unpredictable. If there is one draft where we should all just grab a bag of popcorn, kick back, and enjoy the night, it's this year, 2020, because it's going to get crazy. Stay tuned.